What's going on, guys? It's Foxxy, and today I'm going to be reviewing Outlast. It's a first-person survival horror game that was originally released for the PC back in September of 2013. Then later on they decided to re-release it for the Ps4 in February of 2014. The game was developed and published by the company Red Barrels. Never heard of them? Well, from what I understand, the company was founded by people who previously worked on Uncharted, Assassin's Creed, Prince of Persia, and Splinter Cell. Also, it's worth noting that this is the company's first game. So before we get on to the good stuff, I must say that I've always been very skeptical of Outlast, hearing that it's one of the scariest games ever made, or that in general it's very scary. The reason why is because I've played some scary shit like the Fatal Frame series, Silent Hill 2, Rugrats, The Search for Reptar, and Eternal Darkness, for example. I've even played games that people said were super scary, like the Slender Man game every fucking person and their mother did a Let's Play on. And to be honest, I thought that game was actually really boring. But even though I'm skeptical of Outlast, I'm still going to go into it like I do with every game, an unbiased, open mind, which I would hope everyone would do with every single game they play, but, you know, whatever. So let's begin this review like always with the story. You control a man named Miles Upshur who is a freelance journalist. He travels to this asylum with his camera because of a tip he got from an anonymous source, and well, in a nutshell, he gets trapped here and your goal is to try to get the hell out. There's obviously a lot of weird shit and stuff that happens on the way, but that's for you to find out for yourself because as some of you know, I'm not the type who spoils stories. Also, to fully understand what's going on, it's very, very important that you pay attention to the collectibles in the game. For the most part, they explain practically everything, so if you don't look at them, you won't fully understand the story much at all, especially past the halfway point when the wall rider first makes an appearance. One thing I'll say about the story, though, is that I didn't like anything about the ending or the gameplay leading up to it. In my opinion, it didn't fit in well with the rest of the game, and I think it would have been better if they just went in a different direction instead. Anyway, I beat the story on normal in roughly 4 hours, and I played a little bit on hard, but if you were to go around and grab all the collectibles in one go, I'm sure it would take you about an hour to 2 more. The length of the story, in my opinion, is perfect for a survival horror game like this. I believe if it were to have been longer, it probably would have dragged on and gotten a little stale.
Get them out! Please! Listen, please!
Moving on from the story, let's talk a little bit about the graphics and sound. Well, the graphics aren't fantastic, like it does look better than the majority of PS3 and 360 games. The only thing I really disliked is the graphics have a fuzzy, grainy look to it, even without looking through the camera. Not a terrible thing, but it's just something that kind of annoyed me after a while. Besides that, I love the atmosphere both with the sound and the way everything looks. Because of how dark the game is, you're forced to use the night vision from your camera for a vast majority of the game, and the night vision definitely helps give the game a much creepier feel to it. The character models, while they do look well made, there isn't much variety to them, so you'll end up seeing the same models over and over, and it does get pretty repetitive. With that said, they did a great job creating an eerie feel to the game's music. For example, sometimes when you're walking you'll hear music getting louder and louder, or just giving you the feeling that something at some point is about to jump out and scare the shit out of you. And in most cases it doesn't happen, almost like they were doing it intentionally just to fuck with your mind. Really great job with that, and same goes for the sound effects and the voice acting.
You know, I'm a bit worried how much time you've been spending with Father Martin. I hope you haven't been letting him confuse you with all his holier-than-thou Bible thumping. No offense to the man, but I sometimes worry he might just be a little bit...
The gameplay in Outlast is very simplistic. You have to navigate the asylum with nothing other than your camera, so you can't defend yourself at all, and even if you do come across a weapon like a lead pipe or butcher knife, you aren't allowed to pick up anything to fight back with. What this means is that you have to rely on sneaking and hiding to avoid running into your enemies who are out to kill you. And I kind of mentioned earlier that you have to use the night vision on your camera about 80% of the game to help navigate the pitch black rooms and passageways. Now, the thing about the camera is you have to be very careful about how you use it. The reason why is because it runs off batteries that are constantly draining, and they drain pretty damn fast. You can find more batteries scattered around on like desks or just on the ground, for example, but depending on the difficulty, batteries can either show up frequently or they can be extremely scarce. One disappointing thing I noticed about the AI, and to be completely fair, I did play on normal and hard, so I don't know if this is still an issue on the hardest difficulties. But anyway, I noticed that the AI isn't that great. When I'm not being chased, it's piss easy to sneak around most guys, even if they're like 10 feet away and staring directly at me. Maybe it's because it's dark and they can't see very well, which would make sense in a realistic standpoint. But if that's the case, when they do see me, how are they able to follow me perfectly fine most of the time? Not only that, but there was one specific thing that happened, and it could have just been a glitch or something. But when I played through this the first time, there was a point where while I was being chased, I went into a room and jumped over a desk like 3 feet away from him, and all of a sudden he stopped chasing me and started walking around like he forgot what he was doing. Like I said, it could have been a glitch, but it totally killed the moment for me. Another thing I didn't care for is how simple the puzzles were. It's mostly like you have to pull a couple switches or grab some things in order to move on to the next part of the game, while avoiding being killed by the people walking around. I'm not real bothered by this, but I wish they would have just been a little bit more complex. Next is the big question. Is this game really all that scary? For me personally, well, no. The thing is, Outlast doesn't have much variety when it comes to the type of scares. It's very dependent on basic jump scares, and I felt that a lot of them were just way too predictable. I would have liked to have seen something different, like hearing footsteps behind you, you turn around and all of a sudden the footsteps stop, then you turn around again and a guy is standing right in front of you. You know, just something other than the typical guy jumping out and screaming ooga booga. But I'll be honest though, there were a few things that caught me off guard and made me jump. But the only times where I actually had a nervous feeling or my adrenaline was pumping was when I was being chased. To me, the game felt more like a thriller than it did a horror. I feel like if you're the type of person who's played a lot of horror games in the past, you might feel the same way as I do. However, if you haven't, or I guess just get scared more easily than others, then I can imagine you thinking this game is pretty damn frightening. So to sum it up, Outlast, despite its flaws, and even though I personally didn't think it was scary, I still enjoyed the game very much. The only thing I question is the replay value of something like this. Because once you play through the game, the experience is never going to be as good as the first, since now you know what's going to jump out at you, or just what to expect. It's not one of those games I could play over and over within a couple days or so. It's more like once a month, maybe even a little longer. Outlast came out for free for PlayStation Plus users for the month of February, but if you didn't grab it at the time, is it worth the $20? For someone who is heavily into horror games and or just doesn't get scared easily, I'd say possibly. For someone who is new to them or it doesn't take a hell of a lot to scare them, then the answer to that is definitely. I think they would have easily the best time with the game over people like myself. But either way, for the first game by this company, they did a really good job, and if they do come out with a sequel or some other horror games, I'll definitely take a look at it for sure.
What is the matter with you? You weren't invited to this, you goddamn sicko! You like to watch? It's sick. You're sick.